Talking about engagement and social media, the topic of today's chat is finding your audience. I just want to put also a little disclaimer out here because it's not like I am an expert in these things. Although I will say, since doing some of these things, I have started seeing some significant growth in terms of my social media engagement. I gotta get my phone because this is where all my notes are, and she's just gonna sit there and chill. She's been kind of sad because mommy isn't showing her attention. She's like, every time the tripods are out, I don't have you with me. So yes, today we will be talking about finding your audience. This is something that is going to be a very transparent conversation. I'm going to be kind of discussing prompts that I highly recommend that you take the time to reflect on, maybe even write these things down and kind of give yourself like 5 minutes to just kind of mind dump some of these responses. But overall, when you are creating any type of content, any type of media, that you really have to think about who is going to watch. If you are a person who you want to give people value in the content you are creating, then this is definitely something to listen to and consider. But overall, I would love for you to check this video out, as well as other videos that I have on the topic of art, webcomics, and just other really fun things that I like to do and share with you all. So if that interests you, then definitely subscribe to my channel and check out more videos after this one. You wish mommy luck? You're my audience. You know that? I'm your audience. And all of them are your audience too. Your breath stinks. So, like I mentioned, finding your audience is really important. And it's something that we have to consider when it comes to getting people's eyes on what you're creating. Because if you think about it, your content is sitting kind of like in an entire ocean. You know, your content is this plank of wood that's floating in a sea of other things. And you never know when a boat might float past your plank of wood. I don't know where I'm going with this metaphor, but you know, somebody might see this plank of wood and be like, oh, this is a really good plank of wood. I should grab that up from the water and hold on to it. Maybe I can use it to repair my boat in the future, or use it to build something. Or other times you might have a boat, someone, you know, rows past your plank of wood in the middle of the ocean and just says, oh, it's all right, it's just a plank of wood, I'm just gonna keep on paddling. If you think about it, you want the people who see the value in what you're creating, but the main part is to realize who is the person who's not gonna just float on by and, you know, pass it, but who is the person who's going to actually take the time to find that thing and reach out. And how can I attract more of those people who do find my content valuable and really kind of like fixate on those specific things? That way more people who do find your content interesting can be brought over. So that's kind of the way to think about it. It's like, yes, what you create might not be for everyone, and that's totally okay. But the people it is for, you want them to be coming in droves. So the first question that I ask myself is, who is your audience? But then even more specifically, what is their demographic? So if you think about your audience, you know, who they are, things like their age range, things like, you know, maybe even what ethnicity they are, what they identify as. Those different types of things will help you speak to those people specifically with what you create. So for example, I'll use me as an example, of course. I am a person of mixed ethnicity. I am half Black and half Filipino. I am a woman of young-ish age. I am childless. I also enjoy, cute things. I enjoy anime. I enjoy manga. I like superheroes and magical girls, all of that type of stuff. So I just broke down what my demographic is. And so when we write things, sometimes who we are and who we identify as does feed into the content that we create. So for example, with Space Ultima, Sophie is a young-ish female of mixed ethnicity. She has these supernatural abilities, and she also is being swept away on this intergalactic sci-fi story, this adventure basically. If I know what I identify as and my demographic, and in some way that is involved in my story, then I feel like that means, and involving but not limited to, other people like me. So that being said, that means that I'm going to amplify my content to reach those people even more. So once again, it's very nuanced, but you hear it a lot in marketing, knowing who your demographic is. You are multifaceted, and so each one of those sides of you can reach out to a different person. So that's the first thing. Audience and demographic, very important to have in more of like the back of your mind. So that way you have an idea of who you are reaching. This next one's kind of in two parts. So what sets your story apart from others? But then what is your story similar to? And I think this is very helpful because you can compare it to other things to help get people on board with why they should read your story, but then also understanding what sets you apart from maybe other people in your genre. I've recently started comparing my story to Hunger Games, and not because of the subject matter, because it's not the same, it's not a battle royale, but I use Hunger Games to give people an example of what level of action and romance is in my story. You have equal parts action and thrills, but then you also have just as much, romance and tension amongst the characters. So that's what I like to compare it to. If it's something that's like very widely known, a lot of people will instantly be able to connect that, and they like the, equal parts action and romance, then they would probably like my story. So that's something to help you out with, once again, identifying who it is. That way, when you're talking to people about it, then that can maybe get their eyes on it. And if they're not interested in that comparison that you made, that's totally fine too. The next one is, are the themes and concepts something readers can only get from your story? So if you've got so many stories on the platform, sooner or later, your story might get pigeonholed into being a certain type of story. But, if your story isn't necessarily too different from maybe the story of the other person, then what is it that people are going to get from yours that they can't get from the other? Does that make sense? It's really understanding what makes your story unique on its own, even though it may fit into a genre that is, has a lot of stuff already in it. I think for me, once again, this kind of relates to earlier topics. My story is kind of like sci-fi, action, fantasy, adventure minded. What can I add to this that will make it unique and kind of set itself apart? And I think that representation in certain genres of stories don't exist as widely as they could. So I think for me, it's like having your protagonist be a person of color in a story that maybe you don't see that type of character in often is always great to see, and there's never enough of it. So that's something that I think kind of sets it apart a little bit more. And once again, that's not to say that doesn't exist already, but it's always good to be able to get that like hook of what is so unique about your story. The next thing is pretty much a catch-all, which is marketing. Marketing is something that is so ambiguous and you really can't put your thumb on it. But when you try and fail, sooner or later you're gonna start catching things that definitely could work for you. So I'm just gonna kind of give like a few examples of things that I've seen other people try, things that I've tried, and also give some metrics behind how they've worked. So for example, there are a lot of draw this in your style challenges. That's probably the most popular one. And the reason it's so popular is because, one, it gives people the opportunity to show their love for your creation through basically fan art. It's great when it's attached to a contest with like a prize, but often it doesn't have to. Something that I've seen a lot of people do is they'll do a draw this in your style when they hit certain milestones. So when they hit milestones, that's a great measure of how well they've been doing. And pretty much whenever you have reached that high number of engagement, that means that's more people who are going to participate in your story. Personally, I feel like I won't do a draw this in your style until I hit a certain number of subscribers, but not even just a number, but just when I see like a lot of engagement online, like to the point where I definitely think people will participate. But that's just me. But overall, I definitely think that a draw this in your style is a great way to expand your reach. And if an artist or creative draws your prompt, then other people are going to see them from their audiences. Hello, it is editing Shae currently, and I can't believe I failed to mention one of the biggest ones, which are Reels. I would say TikTok, but at this point in time, the fate of TikTok is a little up in the air. But Reels, yeah, I know that Instagram is a really big artist community, and Reels, to my knowledge, is one of the biggest way to get engagement. Reels could be, quick tutorials, quick time lapses, could be actual animations that tease different plot points in your story. Definitely do not sleep on Reels. I do not know the exact metric when it comes to the algorithm. I just heard from word of mouth that, posting a lot of Reels really do help get eyes on your stuff. That is an area that I'm trying to get better at myself, so that might be why I didn't delve into it that much. But that is something to keep in mind. Like I said, don't sleep on Reels. Just start with baby steps. 2 apps that I use, really one app that I use that helps me out a lot is CapCut. But also, I guess we'll maybe see about the fate of CapCut too. Overall, just putting a little bit of fun effort into your Reels can be really helpful. So art challenges, that's actually something that I am currently going on. I started a OC alternate universe drawing challenge, and it's been really cool because basically you create these art challenge prompts. I decided to do 4 weeks instead of daily because, oh my god, I can barely do daily art challenges. I don't know how anybody else can. Like Inktober, I'm gonna be honest, I think I've only participated in Inktober once, but that was like maybe a handful of days, like 3 days. It's just too overwhelming. So what I did was I broke up January into 4 weeks, and each week they have 2 prompts for their original characters, the last week being the most variety. But that really gives people opportunity to, flex their creative muscle, and then of course being able to reshare their artwork. That way my audience gets to see their work, and it just creates a really good community of oh, I'm sharing your art, and then you get to see what I have to offer online, and vice versa. So I think art challenges are sometimes the best marketing because it's really organic, and then you get to meet virtually a lot of cool creative people. So that's something that I like to do. Fan art, of course. Fan art's pretty much a given. I think that with fan art, you can post other people's artwork and characters, then they get to see what you are about. And also, just a little asterisk with this, a lot of this becomes fruitful when you are really authentic and you're actually genuinely engaging with people's stuff. That's like number one, the key thing. And in my experience, while being, in this community, I have had nothing but positive experiences with people who are genuinely interested in what you're creating. On the last note of marketing is non-related illustrations. Now, I could post panels from my webcomic all day long, and people would see it and they would definitely dig it. What I've noticed is drawing things that do not show up in the comic, drawing artwork that is maybe even completely unrelated, seeing your characters doing something unique and fun. I feel like that does a really good job of getting people's interest in your OCs, then in exchange getting them interested in your webtoon or your webcomic. So, for example, I had the opportunity to collaborate at the end of the year. One was in a creator collab that was holiday themed, all created something that had our original characters doing something that was Christmas or festive. So I drew something that, once again, doesn't show up in the comic. I drew this thing and it really blew up. Like, that's one of my top liked posts on my Space Ultima Instagram. It wasn't anything that had anything to do with the story. It was just a really nice drawing of a scene of my characters. What I'm trying to say is, seeing your characters in the story is great. Sometimes I feel like to hook people in, actually having them just looking really cool can also do the trick. You get to showcase your characters, then you also get to draw them in really cute ways, cute outfits, poses, and just doing something a little bit different. And sometimes I feel like that can really bring people in. And so the last part about finding your audience is actually engaging with the audience that you currently have. So whenever you post an episode on Webtoon or any other platform, most of the time that platform allows for people to comment on your episode. Think about what episodes people are gravitating to the most, what story beats people are commenting on. These are really things that can take people far and can take you even further in recognizing, oh, people really like it when I showcase this character. For example, I have a character named Paxel. He's an android. He's kind of silly and goofy. Whenever he's in an episode, people love it. They absolutely do. And knowing that is by reading the comments and seeing people really respond to whenever his character pops up. Now, I don't want to, of course, make it, obvious that I'm only bringing him into an episode because he's like a fan favorite. Like, that's not it at all. But when he does enter an episode, then that means I know people are going to respond really well. And when he is in that episode, I'm going to definitely use him to his fullest. I don't know if that made sense saying it that way, but basically I'm just gonna make sure that when he is in an episode, you're really gonna enjoy what he brings to it. Okay, so that was a lot of information, but overall it is trial and error, but knowing front and back what you can know about your story is very valuable in moving forward and trying to get the eyes that will inevitably come to your story, but in a really effective way. So I hope that you liked this video, and if you did like the video, then definitely hit like and then subscribe for more of these videos where we're chatting, we're talking about Webtoon stories, or just videos where I'm hanging out and yapping. So I really appreciate you guys watching to the end, and let me know in the comments if there's anything that you've tried to help cultivate your audience to your stories or content. And hopefully in the comments we can kind of all brainstorm and list out some ideas that maybe I didn't mention. So I hope that you guys all enjoyed. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!